All right, I'm chunking this recording up so that we can kind of look at it in those ways. So you guys should have done your 12 steps to the, so I'm sorry, 16 steps to World War I. And I just want to remind you and kind of do a real quick review with the conditions that were happening in the world, and especially in Europe, that kind of cause things to happen. Remember, we talked about how Europe is a very small area with lots of people in it. And there was tensions were very high. We compared it to a powder keg, if you remember that. A powder keg is like a keg, a barrel, a big barrel of gunpowder. So Europe had become this really pressurized thing, and it's going to be like one single spark that's going to erupt into war, right? Remember, in World War I, we're just talking about the assassination of 2 people. And then we have 60 million soldiers and we have 18 million dead. So that should tell you that like the lives of those 2 people were probably not worth 18 million other people dying. So there had to be a lot of other issues, right? So if you recall, we have the acronym M.A.I.N. When we're talking about the conditions in Europe, we have the acronym M.A.I.N, M-A-I-N. So militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Remember, militarism is just these countries that have a huge emphasis on the military. They have money and resources, and society is geared to having a strong military, and so that adds tension to your diplomatic relations with your neighbors, right? And then we also talked about alliances. Alliances were probably the biggest factor in all of this, because there had never been a world war. I know that sounds weird to you. And so all countries could feel the tension growing. All countries thought that there's only a limited amount of goodies out in the world, and every country was trying to get to those goodies. And they thought, we're not going to make it if we don't get as many goodies as possible. So that kind of goes towards imperialism. And so smaller countries, or even bigger countries, were all looking to make alliances. They were all looking to ally themselves with people. And you guys have seen this like in popular culture. You've seen like, what are those shows? Like Lost, where people get voted off the island, where Lost and Afraid, or I don't know, all those crazy shows where you have to build alliances with people to survive. So that was very much the mentality then, was I'm surrounded by enemies, right? Who's got my back if we have to go to blows? Who's got my back if I have to fight for my own country? So you have this complicated web of alliances that existed, right? And some of these alliances are very secretive. It wasn't, today, everyone kind of knows what side every country's on. And back then it was a lot more secretive. That's another reason for this powder keg, right? The next one is imperialism. And this idea we discussed when we talked about the Spanish-American War. Imperialism is just basically a bigger country reaching out and getting involved with a smaller country's issues, right? To get their goodies, to get their cooperation, to steal their bananas, to drill their oil, to cut down their trees, to make sure they don't become communist, whatever the issue is. So in a very simplistic way, you can look at it like being a bully. A bigger country is bullying a smaller country to get what they want. Okay, so that was another issue that was going on. We were engaging in imperialism because we go into Cuba to get their goodies, and we even fight Spain in the Spanish-American War to get their goodies. So imperialism was a big part of that. And the last is nationalism, okay? And kids get confused about this because when you just look at, like, when you have a lot of national pride, it's like, well, isn't that a good thing? Like, people are proud of America. They're glad to be in America. We're kind of seeing a resurgence of all of that in politics right now because of Trump. There is like a lot of national pride. Some people say it goes too far. Some people say it's part of our history, and it's legitimately how we should all feel about our country. So I'm not talking about just patriotism. I'm not just talking about waving your flag and, you know, putting your hand over your heart and being patriotic. Nationalism in this situation is like to an extreme. It's where you love your country, but you love your country to the expense of all other countries. And all other countries exist just to support you and your country. And so that's extreme. So think like Nazi Germany, think North Korea, think who else? Russia, the United Soviet States of Russia, the USSR, very nationalistic. And so that was all going on. So when you look at a map of Europe and you see that all of those things are going on inside this tiny little space, you can see how with one spark, everything explodes. Every war has factors that lead to it. And then every war has a tiny, usually a tiny spark. Sometimes, like in our case, when we joined World War II, not World War I, this is World War II, we have the attack on Pearl Harbor. That's not even a spark. That's more like an explosion, right? But every war has a set of circumstances, and then it's going to be one small thing that happens, and then we're going to have war. Okay, so that's just kind of a rundown of the conditions of World War I. The conditions leading to World War I. All right.